Live at lunch.
You are looking live.
Live at lunch. Live at lunch with Ott and Hanny on 104.5 ESPN, Baton Rouge.
What the hell's going on out here?
Now, here's Jimmy Ott and Charles Hannegriff.
Yeah, for some reason or another, you sound a little taller on radio.
Is it live? Is it live? Is it live?
Live from Doe's Eat Place on Government Street, Live at Lunch, a special Mardi Gras edition, Fat Tuesday edition of Live at Lunch. Max Gocho filling in for Jimmy Ott and Charles Hannegriff today, who are taking Fat Tuesday, taking Mardi Gras off, well-deserved for the King of Sucrose, and Jimmy, who's unfortunately going to avoid New Orleans and the parades at all costs today. So I guess he's going to get some extra college basketball handicapping done today, and that's well worth it. Well worth it. We're now a month away, on this day today, a month away from the start of the NCAA men's tournament. So March Madness is right around the corner. This is a great time of year to start really watching these tournaments, these conferences that you don't otherwise watch. I'll be honest, I watch a lot of SEC. The Big 12 and Big 10 have been fantastic this year. The ACC stepped up a little bit from its dip last season. But now you end up watching American East basketball, or the American, or the Big East is down a little bit this year. But you end up watching all kind of games at this time of year, trying to figure out who the Cinderella is going to be. And so it's a great time of year for college basketball. Big jam-packed show for you today, though. Andy Iskoe joins us, as always, at 11:30 with his college basketball plays for today. Some overall thoughts on basketball as a whole. We'll do first class, second class, no class. Charlie, I'm taking over. I'm sorry. The pirate ship is now mine. I'm the captain now, so you'll get my edition of First Class, Second Class, No Class, brought to you by Supreme Rice. And then Ace Seminero, handicapper, is going to join us with 3 basketball players for tonight. We're here at Doe's Eat Place. We are open for lunch today. Their lunch menu is fantastic, one of my favorite spots here in Baton Rouge. Not only do they have the steaks and tamales, which you know them for, in the evenings, but their special lunch menu has all sorts of things. The salads are great. I get the chef salad routinely, add some blackened chicken. That gets the job done, absolutely. It's Fat Tuesday, though, so I'm going to indulge a little bit. Maybe a hamburger steak. It'll probably be the Nashville hot chicken. That's my favorite, with those hand-cut fries here at Doe's Eat Place. So come by and see us here on Government Street. We are open for lunch today on Mardi Gras. LSU baseball keeps things going last night with a 10-7 victory over Kent State. It was a game that was moved back, actually, from, I believe it was 3 o'clock, moved back to a 6 o'clock start in Alec Boxton. Great weather for it. I think that's why it got moved back. Jay Johnson doesn't really like playing these cold weather games at night. Empty Alec Box Stadium is just not quite the same when everyone's bundled up and whatnot. But with the warmer than average temperatures, move it back to the evening, and it was an enjoyable matchup. Kent State comes in off a sweep of Southeastern Louisiana. They were in Hammond and won each of those games by 5 or more runs. So they were very impressive. They've got some interesting stats early in the season, but we don't know really what Kent State's going to be until the season really progresses. And that's the one thing about baseball at this moment, and I'll get to that in a little bit. But a recap of the game last night. LSU got off to a great start in this one, 4-0 lead after the second inning. Who else but Jake Brown, homer to center, right center field in the first inning. He is hotter than anybody right now, and like how can you say that anyone in the country is playing better than him? I guess there was a baseball player over the weekend who had 3 grand slams, so I guess he's not the hottest player in the country, but 4 home runs now for the season for Jake Brown, and he had quite a celebration after that. So it's baseball. It's weird. I liked it. Some people might object to it, but they're having fun, and he's one of the clubhouse leaders in this locker room, and the dugout embraces Jake Brown, but now he's leading by example, which is even better for this team. I don't know that he's going to hit at this level all season long. I think he's now got a slugging percentage over 1,300, yet 1,353 for a slugging percentage. That is not sustainable for Jake Brown, but nevertheless, he is 9 for 17 for the season, and he had 2 home runs to add to his total last night. We also had Mason Braun get going with a 3-run shot in the second inning, scored Reeves and Darter. Mason Braun I'm calling it Brown because of Christian Brown, the basketball player from Kansas, who I've gotten used to mispronouncing Barun, which is Braun, but getting used to change that over to Brown. But it was Mason Braun who got things going, and there was a lot of promise coming in to the season with him. A lot of expectations that he would be one of the rising contributors to this team from last season, which is obviously defending a national title. But Braun comes in, and hits a 3-run shot, and it seemed like LSU might kind of pull away from Kent State in this one. But we saw Jaden Newt get the start for LSU on the bump, and there were some inconsistencies from Newt, which is a little bit concerning. It's one start, and we're familiar to seeing Newt. He's gotten some play last season, and he's your midweek guy your first time around. It doesn't mean he's going to be defined in some role. I think we're going to see different things throughout the season. We're going to see another midweek game tomorrow against Nichols, another opportunity for a midweek start for someone out there, and you'll figure out where you go from here. But a walk in each of his first 3 innings. He ended up getting 3 innings recorded on the stat sheet, but a leadoff walk in the first inning, got a double play, and then was able to get out of the first inning. Second inning, a 1-out walk issued, but got out of it with back-to-back swinging strikeouts. And then in the third inning, that's when he got in trouble. Opens up with a single by Luke Matthew for the Golden Flashes, and then issues a walk. And you have first and second with nobody out, and one of the more dangerous hitters that LSU is going to face, at least early in the season in this non-conference play, in Sawyer Solitaria, who has 4 home runs now on the year because he sent this one easily out to left field. A no-doubter, and just one that he was sitting on, 1-1, expecting it. And that's the kind of position you put yourself in when you give up free passes. The single to open up to lead off the third inning is one thing to give up, but then you give up a walk to Grady Mee, and that's just not what you want to see from a guy in these starts. It's Kent State. They were 3-0 coming in, but you've got to be able to avoid the free passes because in SEC play, those are going to bite you a whole lot more. And in this case, an example was made out of him. But he gets out of the inning, 3 straight outs to close after that. So he righted the ship a little bit. The stat line for him, when all was said and done, Newt records 59 pitches, 3 hits, 3 runs, all earned, 3 walks, and 4 strikeouts. That made things a little bit more interesting for the rest of the game, and I do think it gave an opportunity for some of the bullpen arms to be tested. Now, LSU would continue to score. They scored 3 more in the bottom of the third inning. It was another Jake Brown homer. He started off with 2 homers. A solo shot to straightaway center field. I don't know if you could hit it much more in the center. I guess it was slightly left of center field, but hits the batter's eye and once again gets to trot around the bases slowly and pridefully. But we continue to see more from the LSU bats in the third inning. York gets a single through the right side. He is been outstanding already. You're seeing some of the promise, and he's going to be a fan favorite, of course. Big Papa gets it going, advanced to second on a wild pitch there. Unfortunately, it wasn't great at a stolen base. It wasn't a stolen base, but nevertheless got the box rocking when he's advancing. Dardar ends up walking right behind him, and then that would end up loading the bases when Caraway gets a single up the middle. Reeves would drive in 2 of those runs with a double to left field. That was a really good piece of hitting on the second pitch of that at bat. So you'd end up leaving some runners on in that one. Left the bases loaded. Curiel grounded out to the pitcher, but nevertheless a productive inning, a productive half inning would get you up 7-3 at the end of 3. A run in the 4th and the 5th and the 6th would continue to give you some insurance runs, but you got some work from the bullpen, and that's what you wanted to see here. This is a team that comes in with a lot of promise for their bullpen. Depth there, and so you were going to rotate some guys in. Ethan Plog would end up recording the win. He did allow a couple of base runners in his performance. He did go into the 5th inning and led off with a walk. He hit a pitch. He plunked a guy in the 4th inning, but got 2 strikeouts, so you like what you saw out of him in 23 pitches. Devin Sheeran would come in the 5th inning. Again, he inherited a runner when Plog would lead off with a walk. Got 2 strikeouts in just 9 pitches there, so like what you saw out of Sheeran. And then Maverick Rizzi comes in the 6th inning, and this is a guy who has a lot to play for this year with his stature, with his ability, his velocity. 6'9". Scouts have to be just loving to see him potentially progress, and so it's a big season for Rizzi, and sometimes that pressure can mount on a bullpen arm when you just don't have a whole lot of sample size to go off of. But Maverick Rizzi comes in. He would issue a walk. This was a problem for LSU. They only issued 6 walks in terms of free passes, not plunks, but 6 walks in this game. That matched what they did all weekend, so that's a little bit concerning here. But Rizzi did have a walk, but a strikeout, didn't allow any hits as well. So you get through the 6th inning. You've got a pretty comfortable lead. You'd like to put things away, but unfortunately Kent State would get things going in the 7th inning. DJ Primo came in for Rizzi at the top of the 7th. Got a leadoff strikeout, but unfortunately would walk a batter on a 3-2 count, and then a hit by pitch would cause first and second with 1 out. Devin Fontenot came in relief of Primo, and there were more struggles from there. Solitaria, once again, gets a single. Does not score a run, but loads the bases. And Brody Willia for the Kent State Golden Flashes would double to score 3 runs. So there you go. It scored 3 runs there. You'd get a 4th runner in when Willia would score on a single through the left side, and that would be all she wrote for Fontenot. So Gavin Guidry had to come in relief of Fontenot and DJ Primo in the 7th inning, and he would get out of it. Ground out from Hunter Klotz to the shortstop, and that would end the inning. Gavin Guidry, that is where the bread is going to be buttered, it looks like, as of now. He is picked up where he left off 2 years ago. Of course, unfortunately missed all of last season with the injury, and there were concerns about where he would be at this point. But we saw actually more velocity from him last night, which was very, very encouraging. We know the breaking ball is there. It's always going to be the case for him. But comes in and continues his run into the 8th inning. We saw him end up getting the save in this one, would close out the game, 2 1/3, 5 strikeouts, no base runners allowed. Did have a wild pitch when he first came in, but ultimately a pretty much flawless performance from Gavin Guidry in 33 pitches. So he picks up where he left off on Friday. The velocity was up, and so it's very encouraging when you see some of these bullpen arms. Yes, there was a really bad inning in the 7th. Primo and Grant Fontenot, I called him Devin Fontenot. Grant Fontenot got hit a little bit, and Primo allowed a couple free base runners, and you can't have that. But overall, you see the bats continue to roll, and that is encouraging. They didn't get any more runs in the 7th, 8th, or 9th. They obviously didn't bat in the 9th, but their bats are very encouraging. The power from the left side you're getting. 9 home runs so far. A little bit unexpected. I know the temperatures are warmer than usual at this point. The ballpark might play in a little bit smaller, but the wind wasn't blowing out yesterday, and I know it might have been on Saturday, but there was no wind-assisted homers. Those were big shots for LSU, and it continues right where they left off. So, look, you'd like the 7th inning not to happen. A couple big innings there for Kent State, but nevertheless, you get the win, and you feel encouraged about where LSU stands at this point. What's ahead for LSU is certainly a little bit more encouraging. We'll talk about that after the break. Again, Andy Isco will join us at 11:30. First class, second class, no class at the top of the 2nd hour, and then Ace Seminara joins us in the bottom of the hour there at 12:30. Live at lunch, live from Doe's Eat Place. Come by and see us. We are open for lunch here on this Mardi Gras Fat Tuesday here in Baton Rouge. Live at lunch on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
Live at lunch with Ott and Hanny from Doe's Eat Place on Government Street on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
Happy Mardi Gras. Welcome back to Live at Lunch from Doe's Eat Place. Max Gotro in for Jimmy and Charlie, who have the day off. Continue our recap of LSU last night, the 10-7 victory over Kent State. It was part of a now 4-game sample size, and just an overall thought on what to take away at this point. You came in with some expectations about what this team would be, and I think the one thing that you've seen that might be a little bit different than what you expected, at least offensively, when you look at, was you've seen a little bit more power. Nine home runs from the left side, 10 home runs overall. And we didn't expect, at least I didn't expect, I'll speak for myself here, I didn't expect one or two specific guys to have a whole lot of power. I know Big Papa might look like he's just a nuke monster and he's going to hit 25 home runs, but he's just a great hitter. He's a Prince fielder. He's going to put balls in play, get you singles and doubles as well. And he's got a couple home runs so far this season, but you're off to a great start in terms of power, and maybe you're a little bit ahead of schedule there. Maybe you'll get those one or two players that get to 20 home runs. I'm not so sure yet, but in general, the lesson here is the sample size is very small. Okay, and the sample size specifically is against opponents. It's a reminder. I think everyone knows this, that Milwaukee is not equivalent to Vanderbilt or Arkansas or even Tennessee, who will probably dip a little bit this year, or Texas and Texas A&M. These are not those teams, and you're getting into the season. You're starting off fresh, and you're just trying to get some reps in, and you're trying to figure out who you trust at this point, especially from the pitching perspective. Obviously, you're off to a better start. The pitching, we thought the bullpen was deep. We've seen a couple of mistakes, a couple free passes, especially yesterday, and we're going to find out who you trust over the next few weeks. The good news is you've got a tougher schedule coming up, and by tougher, I mean at least names that you recognize, bigger Power 5 sort of teams, and not all those teams really respect baseball that much. Not all of them take that seriously. The Big Ten is not a huge conference, not a powerhouse when it comes to college baseball. But they're at least names you recognize. But overall, humans have many flaws. The species that we are, we fight wars and we fight all the time, and we're often our own worst enemy. We have certain traits that come back to bite us from time to time. But one of them is recency bias, and one of them is looking at a sample of 4 games and maybe taking too much away going forward and suggesting that the thing that we saw last, the 4 games that we've seen in the last 4 days, are telling for what's to come. And there's certainly promising starts for some of these players, and there's some concerns. We looked at the start on Friday night for Case and Evans, who you trust big time. We saw it last year down the stretch in the bullpen, got huge moments, and had to fill in as a starter. Can he be a full-time starter? We'd like to think so. We like to think that he could be a great Friday night guy, but we don't know that yet. And one start doesn't suggest that he can or can't be. He had his moments. Saturday was outstanding. What you saw there. Moore was outstanding in that game, and that is something that we do expect perhaps to see a little bit more of. He came in, Cooper Moore, with the idea that he's going to throw strikes and he's not going to get free passes. And what do you know in that game? He pretty much confirmed that. No walks in the game, did hit a batter, but ultimately 6 innings, 4 hits, did give up a solo shot to left, but 11 strikeouts. And that's what you have to do in these matchups when you're facing lesser competition. Don't let them get free passes. You challenge these batters a little bit. Maybe you'll have to get a little bit more pick your spots in SEC play, but at least find your rhythm and find it over the plate. And we saw that with Cooper Moore, and so that was a great start for him. And then on Sunday, a little bit different with Schmidt, who had his moments. 9 strikeouts. You saw the promise for him. Got a little bit roughed up, had the 3 runs that he allowed, but ultimately there's promise there. The breaking ball is always going to be there. The fastball was mostly there. 3 walks, you'd like to clean that up a little bit. The placement hasn't always been there in his career, and that was a concern coming in this year. But ultimately, you saw a lot of promise that you expected coming in. But there's a lot of confirmation bias with that, too. I'm just saying here, we're all excited about college baseball season, but I'm somewhere between Jimmy and Charlie if you've been listening to the show lately. Charlie, like many of us, and myself included, are very excited that college baseball is here, especially when the men's basketball team has struggled as much as they have at this point. I look forward to men's basketball season. I look forward to the women right now. Of course, they've been extremely exciting to watch, competent, and they're playing in these really good games like we saw over the weekend. But unfortunately, when the men's team doesn't deliver, the women's team is. Gymnastics will get going, but a lot of the attention has shifted around here to baseball, and that's rightfully so. Everyone gets excited about it. It's something to talk about. And they're winning. They won 2 national titles in the last 3 years. So, of course, there's reason to be excited. But let's not take away too much. A lot can change. Look at the opening day lineups the last few years and tell me that those are the ones that ended the season. It's not always going to be like that. And you're going to throw all your arms you have at this point to try to figure out what sticks. And so, look, I would look at Sam Darnold. Sam Darnold is a great example of recency bias, confirmation bias, and how small sample sizes can be very deceiving. All I heard about coming into this season when he was in Seattle, well, Seattle doesn't really have a quarterback. They have Sam Darnold. Look at the way he ended last year. He was good for all the less important games. He was good for most of the season, and as soon as it mattered for the Vikings, as soon as they were playing for a 1 seed, as soon as they were playing in the playoffs, he had his 2 worst games. And the moment's going to be too big for Sam Darnold. Well, it turns out that he basically had those 2 games last year with the Vikings. He had very limited spots. Like he barely played in San Fran when he was there. The Jets were never really relevant. So he was in a bad position in a bad franchise that sets up quarterbacks to fail. And this time, he moves to Seattle. They have some confidence in him. They invest in him, not totally. You know, they're hedging their bets a little bit with a free agent in Sam Darnold. But they put great pieces around him, and they put a great coordinator who builds trust, develops him, eases him in, finds out where his spots, where he's best suited, what suits Sam Darnold, and that's putting him in positions to find Jackson Smith and Jigba, maybe outside the slot, give him opportunities to find all the weapons that he has, get rid of the ball a little bit quicker because the offensive line was a little inexperienced, and there was a question mark there in Seattle. But ultimately, as the season progressed, Sam Darnold grew his confidence, and yeah, he might have had one bad game early in a big primetime matchup. But later in the season, when he's playing the Rams and they come back and beat him in overtime on Thursday Night Football, later in the season, they had these divisional matchups that were important, that were all about getting that 1 seed in the NFC, which said a lot about what Seattle was all season long. But Sam Darnold got them there in some big moments. And then in the playoffs, you were still hearing people say, well, I don't trust Sam Darnold in the big games. But the sample size was too small. You can't judge. And unfortunately, the playoffs, a lot of times, a lot of sample sizes are small. Justin Herbert's, I believe, played in his 4th playoff game. Right now, you'd have to grade him as a playoff choker, a loser in the playoffs. His performances in the playoffs have been dreadful. Maybe it's 3 games. But nevertheless, that's a small sample size. That doesn't project forward that Justin Herbert will never win a Super Bowl or could never make a run in the playoffs. Is always going to play poorly. Lamar Jackson, a slightly bigger sample size, and I think it's fair to knock him for his big game and playoff performances. But still, we focus so much on these big games because that's what we're all focused on. We're all watching these games. But the sample sizes are small, and you can't draw too much going forward from the 4 games that LSU has played so far. But we can try to confirm, not too much. Confirmation bias is a real thing, but we can try to match up a little bit what we expected coming in. And the Bats right now are, I would say, overperforming. Not that you can draw too much from the pitching staffs you've faced, but ultimately, I mean, a team on-base percentage of .474 to this point, slugging percentage of over .700, some key contributions in terms of power, 3 players, and Seth Dardar, Jake Brown, of course, and Zach York, who have multiple home runs at this point through 4 games. Yes, it's encouraging. And the pitching staff, there are maybe some concerns if you want to have out there. But ultimately, I'm not like Jimmy. These games are not completely irrelevant. And, I understand that sentiment. I mean, these are nothing like the teams you're going to play in SEC play. I get that. If you're somebody who's been itching for baseball, this does not mean that LSU is going to win it all once again. They're going to go back-to-back. It's an encouraging start. You're 4-0. You've had a couple moments, a couple bad innings, couple big hits, 3-run homers and whatnot. All right, put a little asterisk. Note it down. But it doesn't mean all that much going forward. What is notable going forward is the schedule will get interesting this weekend. Of course, they go to Jacksonville for the College Baseball Classic. They do face Nichols tomorrow, 1 p.m., early start, early afternoon. They got swept over the weekend at Tennessee. They do play tonight at South Alabama, so perhaps they can get a win before coming to Alex Box. But then you go to Jacksonville this week, and that's a little bit more of a relevant test. Indiana, Notre Dame, UCF. Indiana's not a baseball powerhouse. They got swept at the weekend in Chapel Hill. North Carolina, I mean, they're a top 10 team, so that's not too harsh. They got run ruled in one of the games and had a brutal loss in their game 3. It was a doubleheader on Saturday. Threw the game away. If you saw that, the second baseman, routine play, get out of it, 3-1 lead, throws it on the ground, ball gets away, tie ball game, they lose in extra innings. Brutal loss for them. But, they're back in action tonight against Bradley as well. Notre Dame, 11 a.m. start on Saturday. They went 2-1 against Florida Atlantic. I don't know what to tell about Notre Dame. I know their Saturday pitcher who you might face, Caden Crowell. Caden Cronel. 3 innings, no runs, 4 walks. Not a whole lot from him. Might see him. We don't really know all that much, but it's Notre Dame. They've got some baseball history at least. And then UCF on Sunday, who swept Siena all by run rule. They play Miami tonight, so that might be an interesting one to watch if you want to throw on ESPN Plus for a ranked meeting in Coral Gables against Miami. And their starting pitcher on Sunday, who we'll see if these rotations will move around. We can't judge too much, but Camden Wicker, who you saw on Sunday, their third game, went 5 innings, no runs, 4 walks, 4 strikeouts. So you have a slightly higher level of competition and a slightly bigger sample size. So looking forward to seeing that this weekend in Jacksonville. And they can't look ahead. They've got Nichols tomorrow. I can look ahead, perhaps, but they can't look ahead. They'll go face a Southland team in Nichols at the box tomorrow afternoon. We'll be back after this. This is Live at Lunch. We're here at Doe's Eat Place. Andy Iskoe will join us after the break with his college basketball thoughts here on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
Live at Lunch with Ott and Hanny from Doe's Eat Place on Government Street on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge. Heading out to Las Vegas, deep in the desert, lives one man. One man of many sports bets. The one and only Andy Iskoe.
Max Cotra in for Jimmy and Charlie. Pleased to welcome in our regular Tuesday contributor, Andy Iskoe from Las Vegas. Andy, how's it going today? Happy Mardi Gras.
Well, it hasn't quite yet reached Las Vegas, although I do hear some sirens in the background, so maybe there's some activity that's starting up there, but nothing quite like down what you have down there, Baton Rouge, New Orleans, and all those fun places. I'm going to try and get down there one year.
You never made it for Mardi Gras?
Not at that time of the year. The closest to Mardi Gras that I've ever come down in New Orleans was Super Bowls.
Ah, yes. Those. I feel like it's a great host city, but we're a little biased down here for sure. Speaking of the NFL, before we get to some college basketball, NFL draft a little over a couple months away. There's not a whole lot of odds available at this point, just the number 1 overall pick. But when do you start looking into some of those draft odds, and do you think that's one of the more valuable spots for bettors out there is trying to get ahead of some of these moves and some of the speculation, or are you waiting for the combine, or are you betting the NFL draft at all?
I rarely do anything with the NFL draft. That's usually so much inside information driven with people who have contacts within organizations that they can trust, and as long as they don't spread it out too far wide, the people that give them the information will continue to trust them. So I normally, just because there's an event out there that you can bet on doesn't mean you have to bet on it. And at that point in time, I'm getting, first of all, we're in the early stages of the baseball season and the beginning stages of the NHL and NBA playoffs, where at least you have some idea of who's playing and what the matchups are, et cetera. So I know there are a lot of people who, for example, are NFL only, and yeah, that's a great time of the year for the people to do that. And actually, the most of what I do in the NFL off season before the draft, and then after the release of the schedule, is I start taking a look really closely at the strength of schedules. Now, we know the strength of schedules right now because we know the 17 games on the schedule. What we don't know, and which is so vital to preparing yourself for season win totals, is the sequencing of the games, which comes out about 3 weeks after the draft, which would be about the middle of May. And at that point, even though the numbers will have been out there for a couple of months, there's a lot more certainty because the one missing piece of the puzzle at that time is the sequencing of the games, which is very important. Road games, home games, road trips. where you have your divisional contests, et cetera. So I follow the draft, obviously, to find out which highly touted players are going where. But as far as actually trying to wager on that, I'm wagering on other things at the time.
No doubt those scheduling spots very important in the NFL. We've got an Australia game to lead it off, a divisional game, so that's a little interesting, and that'll be. By the way, that's
the one thing that I think the NFL is stupid in doing, because you want to play a non-division or especially a non-conference game. Well, that's okay. That's only one game, but you only get 6 division games, and to take away a home game from one of those 6 games from one of those teams is stupid.
I'm curious if the only reason for that, Andy, we could see, so it's in week 1, and you're worried about rest and an unfair advantage for one team or the other. I wonder if they might play them back-to-back. I know it seems way too early to play 2 divisional teams, but maybe at least you have the fair advantage of them both coming off of a big trip.
No,
Do you think that's possible?
No. The travel isn't what concerns me. The fact that it's a division game, which is so important in the standings, and it means that one of those 2 teams is not going to have a home game against that opponent. They're going to play them on the road back in the States.
Okay.
That's what I don't like about it. It's totally unfair. The rest, I've always had situations or discussions with people about situations for rest. If you're going to play a divisional game, make sure that both teams have the same time off. So, for example, you want to play division games? I've always said, you know what, let's take like the NFC East. You give all 4 teams in the NFC East a bye week, and then what you do is you play the division games, each playing a division rival the following week, whether it be on a Thursday or a Thursday and a Sunday. I'd actually not mind seeing teams coming off of byes playing a Thursday night doubleheader.
Got it. All right, we're a month away. Here we go. This college basketball, a month away from the NCAA tournament getting underway. That's the first 4. I'm kind of stretching there. It doesn't really count. But nevertheless, a month away. Closing stretch here. We're starting to see teams jockey for position and seeding. Also, the bubble watch is certainly a factor here. Any teams you're monitoring right now who are maybe sliding or are coming up in the tournament? I don't know if you're looking at futures or whatnot, but just some teams you're monitoring right now, the way they're playing in college basketball.
Well, I'm looking at a lot of them. I'm going to look at a key test tonight, for example, with Michigan at Purdue. I've not been all that thrilled with Purdue really for the last few years. I think that this team with Painter, the coach, and some of the talent they've had, I think even though they made it to the championship game a couple of years ago, losing to Connecticut, I think largely this team has underachieved, and there are a lot of critics out there about the fact that they just can't play very well when the tournament comes around, at least not achieving what their seeding suggests that they should achieve. So tonight they have an opportunity. They're playing a Michigan team that blew them out when they met about a year ago. I think it was in last March. This is a test for Purdue. It's a good spot. Now, old-time handicapping would normally say, well, you got a highly ranked team and they're a home underdog, even if it's to another highly ranked team, as is the case tonight, that you almost automatically play the home team. Well, that doesn't really work anymore, because what we're seeing is more of these teams are playing to their true form on the road than they did in the past. I think coaches are a lot better at preparing teams for their big games. I think Michigan is about a 2.5 point favorite tonight, last time I saw.
2.5, yes.
And I'm going to take a look at Purdue, because this is a team that, they've lost, 3 of their last 10 games after having one loss for most of the season. It's a spot where I'm going to learn a lot more about Purdue with the results of tonight's game. If they pull out a win, or if they lose by a point or 2 in a very competitive game, I'll upgrade them a little bit. But if they end up losing by 6-10 points at home to a team that's now, for the first time, I think, in over a decade, number 1 in the nation, that's a problem for me as far as Purdue going forward.
Yeah, Braden Smith, their guard, is really good, been there a while, but they always have bigs that get in trouble, foul trouble in March Madness, and that can always be a bit of an issue for Purdue. So something to monitor tonight against Michigan. How about some other games? We got 10 games featuring ranked teams tonight, including North Carolina, 7.5 point underdog. I'm seeing some comments in our YouTube chat about stinky line here. NC State favored by 7.5. Ken Pom had this one as a 3-point favorite, but some injury concerns for North Carolina. How do you see this one playing out? A rivalry game in the Triangle.
Yeah, one of their best players is out after an injury, and maybe that's a bit of an overreaction by the lines maker. It's another situation. We saw it last week. Or I forget the game it was. I know we saw it the other night with with Arizona losing for a second time at home, where Texas Tech came in there, and it seemed like an awful lot of points, and I could see this being somewhat similar. Your team like North Carolina, you recruit 2-3 deep at most positions. So, yeah, they've got someone who, has been a key figure. I think he averaged close to 20 points a game out. NC State's playing well, but I would not be surprised to see. I'm not going to expect North Carolina to win the game, but they certainly could. But you're showing what, 6.5 right now?
7.5.
7.5. Okay, I've been out for about a couple of hours, so I haven't monitored it, but I saw it this morning. Yeah, I'd be inclined to take the points with North Carolina. That's another team that, and again, I want to do a little bit more, wait a little time to see what the expected injury delay will be as far as how long he'll be out. But North Carolina is a team that I think has a chance to make a nice deep run. Another team that I'm looking at tonight, and they are favored on the road, but it's a team that I think they've now got a good coach in Willard, and that's Villanova going into Xavier. I saw about 4.5 earlier this morning, and I like the way this Villanova team has been playing as far as that goes, and I think they can go in there and win this game 7 to 10 points. So that's another one that I'm on tonight.
I'm on that one too, Andy. They've been really good on the road in conference play, 7-1 against the spread. That one loss coming by a half point, where they won by 3 as 3.5-point favorites. So Xavier won a couple in a row. NC State's lost a couple in a row, so it's a big spot for them against North Carolina. Caleb Wilson, you mentioned him, the leading scorer, 20 points per game. He's out about 3 to 4 weeks at this point, but questionable is their center, Henry Visar, who missed the last game with illness and an injury. We're unknown on his status tonight, so something to monitor in that game as well.
Another team that I'm looking at, I got them at 50 to 1, I think, a short while ago, St. John's. They're playing very well right now. They've answered some challenges over the last few weeks. And, with Patino, you figure when he's got a good team, and he really likes this team, that they have an opportunity to make a deep run. I remember last year they made a nice deep run. Who was it that they ended up losing to? Was it Arkansas, perhaps? When they were,
that's right. Yep.
Yeah, and I like this team, especially at those long odds, because they're playing in a competitive conference. Although the Big East is not as strong at the top and middle as they have been in recent years. A lot of those teams are, I guess, almost every team, but certainly teams are always rebuilding now with the portal as far as goes, and guys getting out early. They've still played well on the national stage, and I think they're capable of making a deep run in the tournament. I'll be interested to see where they're seated. Of course, they're right up there, right behind UConn in the Big East standings right now. So that's a team that I think has certainly Sweet 16, maybe even Elite 8 or potential or more. And once you get there, anything can happen because you're going up against 7 other good teams.
Our friends at Bally's and the Queen here, the DraftKings Sportsbook, have 70 to 1 for a title shot at St. John's. So that's a good shout there. I'll have to monitor that one.
Those are great odds. Those are great odds.
Absolutely. A couple more games tonight before we let you go, Andy. I guess if you're playing futures, that's always encouraging at this point, even without the bracket being set. But a couple big matchups in the Big Ten. Some road favorites here. Looking at Nebraska, actually now a 1.5-point underdog at Iowa. They've been one of the impressive teams this year. Wisconsin, a 1.5-point road dog at Ohio State. And then how about these Cinderella possibilities? St. Louis maybe not so much a Cinderella at this point. They've been outstanding this year. But Miami, Ohio, laying just 2.5 at UMass. They're undefeated, the last undefeated team left.
Yeah, and you wonder if the pressure's getting to them. And what the coach came out and said the other day, well, if we go unbeaten, heading into the postseason, I'm going to wear a Speedo or something, and that excited his team and everything. But the reason I mention that is that maybe that puts a little pressure on Miami because, we'd love to see our coach do that. We got to really go win. And sometimes when you're playing under that kind of pressure against, and maybe that short line tells you something also. I think we saw it with Buffalo last week where they were small favorites at Buffalo, and it ended up being a very competitive game. I'm not going to play that one, but I am interested in Miami of Ohio. How long their run will last, we don't know. We saw a team like Utah State come into the tournament very hot last year. They were a very popular play in their opening game against UCLA, and they lost by double digits in that one. So I don't know if Miami of Ohio can, from a similar type conference, the MAC versus the Mountain West could do something like that. But it's an entertaining game certainly to watch, and I know there'll be a lot of people looking for Miami, but I'm going to stay away from it. That line's a little suspicious.
Andy Isco, we always appreciate your time here on Tuesdays here live at lunch. You can follow him on Twitter at VegasAndy711. Andy, have a great one.
You too. Have a wonderful week. We'll catch again next Tuesday.
All right. Before we catch a break here, we want to remind you about our friends at the Pierre Part Store and the Thibodeau Store. That's right. Spring is basically here. Despite what maybe Punxsutawney Phil might have said. 6 more weeks of winter, he's always wrong. Don't worry about that. I think we've got one more night in the 30s looking at the next 2 weeks. So spring's around the corner. You get gardening supplies, your outdoor supplies, of course grilling. It's a great time of year for grilling. All your outdoor pots, your cast iron pans, any cooking need outdoors, they've got you covered at the Pierre Part Store, pierrepartstore.com, ThibodeauStore.com. Pierre Part Store, of course, on Highway 70 Pierre Part, 900 St. Patrick Highway in Thibodaux for the Thibodeau Store, and, of course, the Lockport Store and the LaRose Store. Where else but Lockport and LaRose? Pierre Part Store, my favorite place to stop by always in Pierre Part. I've spent a lot of time up there, and as Jimmy likes to give me credit for giving him a little tip on just how good the Pierre Part Store is. So check them out, pierrepartstore.com, ThibodeauStore.com. Do it best with the Pierre Part Store and Thibodeau Store in those Pierre Part and Thibodeau. What can I say? Very, very fitting. We're here live at lunch, live from Doe's Eat Place on Government Street, 1045 ESPN Baton Rouge.
Live at lunch with Ott and Hanny from Doe's Eat Place on Government Street on 1045 ESPN Baton Rouge.
Max Cocho filling in for Jimmy and Charlie on this Mardi Gras Fat Tuesday. We're here at Doe's Eat Place where they are open for lunch and for dinner tonight. So make your dinner reservation, dinner plans here tonight at Doe's Eat Place. Of course, the steaks and tamales here at night. But, man, if you ask me for my advice, my recommendations on the lunch menu here, I struggle to come up with one because I could come up with all of them. The chef salad, the blackened chicken I get, fantastic. But, hey, it's Fat Tuesday. Maybe you want to indulge a little bit. Hamburger steak, a go-to. The burgers here are fantastic. The seafood is outstanding. The hand-cut fries, of course, come with so much of this stuff, and that's to die for. But the Nashville hot chicken, that's going to be on my order today. It's Fat Tuesday. Why not? I can't help myself. Come over. Doe's Eat Place. We are open today here on Government Street for lunch and for dinner. We had a couple ranked games last night in college basketball. Duke took down Syracuse easily, 101-64. They dominated. Syracuse not the same team. They might have some coaching changes there in Syracuse. But Houston, Iowa State was an absolute fantastic top 10 matchup in the Big 12. And Iowa State delivered on this one. It's a raucous environment to go to. The Cougars were tested in this game. It was back and forth. Flemings had 22 for Houston. It's an interesting team that they only pretty much play their starters most of their minutes, while Iowa State, they get a lot of contributions from all 8 guys. They had 8 players play in this game, all with 15 or more minutes, or 15-plus minutes, and each of them had at least 6 points, but no more than 12. So they're very even how they get their contributions. And it's really a team to watch in Iowa State, the Big 12. I know you think about Houston, you think about Kansas, but Iowa State really showed out. In Houston, once again, maybe just falling short. Their defense not quite as good. They don't get to the free throw line. It's always been a thing under Kelvin Sampson. But just something to watch for a team that has a lot of promise going into the tournament every single year in Houston. We'll grab a break. We'll come back after this. It's first class, second class, no class, live at lunch from Doe's Eat Place on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
Live at lunch, first class.
I want a seat in first class where I was booked and ticketed over a month ago.
Second class.
No man should be subjected to the indignity of being labeled or treated like a second-class citizen.
And no class.
Life had become like school on Sunday. No class.
I'll tell you what then. Why don't you call me sometime when you have no class?
First class, second class, and no class. Brought to you by Supreme Rice. Buy local with Louisiana-based Supreme Rice since 1936.
Welcome back to Doe's Eat Place. Max Cocho filling in for Jimmy and Charlie, who have the day off. And this is normally Charlie's segment, first, second, no class. But I'm the captain now, so I'm taking over. And Charlie gave the keys over to me today. So got a couple submissions for each of these. I guess you can decide amongst yourselves which one is the most deserving. I'm going to start off with one, though, that Charlie brought to my attention in first class. This weekend, Clemson baseball, ranked 19th in the country, hosted Army for their opening series. We've seen LSU do this, actually, in opening series. Eric Bakich, in I believe his 4th season with Clemson, they've started a tradition. I believe they started last year, where their team that is not playing, not in the lineup, go up into the stands when they honor their military veterans. So this point, whether it be always in the 4th inning or whatnot, I saw it on Twitter. It was sent over to me by Charlie, and they were honoring their military veterans in a half inning. And Eric Bakich sends up his team, and all the players take their hat off. They acknowledge, shake the hands of the military veterans who are standing in the crowd. Really, really cool tradition to start, and a really honorable way to honor our veterans, which oftentimes are forgotten about. But because they were playing Army followed their lead, and the Army players themselves, who were also in the dugout, would join Clemson in the stands. A really nice moment, going to the stands, taking the caps off, and acknowledging the veterans. Baseball, it's a great sport, but it pales in comparison to, some of the honorable things that our men and women in the military do. So Eric Bakich and the Army baseball team joining them, of course, as well. First class by Clemson baseball, a really nice tradition that they had, and to honor them against Army was a really fitting way to start the college baseball season. Another one here, I guarantee you that will be more of the popular first class here. Maybe because I have the show, I'm just trying to go for some clickbait here, but I really do believe it's worth mentioning that there was a notable win this weekend in the PMAC. Unfortunately, it was not LSU, but it was South Carolina's Dawn Staley, who notched her 500th career win with South Carolina. It's now her 18th season there with the Gamecocks. They had made just 3 Sweet 16 appearances before she got there, and they are now one of the powerhouses in women's basketball. When she took over her first season, they went 10-18. They had their first winning season under her in her 3rd season, made the women's NIT second round, then made the tournament in her 4th year and have not looked back. They made the tournament every single year. They've made the Sweet 16 in all but one of those seasons. And, of course, they were the first team to knock off Gino Auriemma's real run of champions. The UConn Huskies had won 6 of 8 national titles. We remember their dominance from Stores, the job that Auriemma had done. It seemed inevitable that UConn was just going to win every single year. And South Carolina challenged that. The 2016-2017 season, they won with a 33-4 record, won the national title, South Carolina's first, of course. And since then, they've added 2 more to their resume. They've just been dominant, and you expect them now. It used to just be Gino Auriemma and UConn. That's who you expected. And maybe you think of Stanford, you think of Texas, some of these top programs. But South Carolina is certainly one of those now. And it got to a point where when LSU won their title, did they maybe get a good draw in that South Carolina lost to Iowa? Maybe so. They didn't have to play South Carolina. We know that LSU has struggled in this matchup over the years. Kim Mulkey yet to notch a win against against Dawn Staley's South Carolina team at least. So Dawn Staley been at it for now 18 seasons in South Carolina. Columbia is much better now. Not a basketball powerhouse, but certainly is now under Dawn Staley. So first class Dawn Staley, 500th win at South Carolina for her. Second class, we'll go back to LSU baseball for a second. Mentioned it earlier, but power from the left side of the plate. We did not necessarily expect to see this. It's been very good. I mentioned that it's a small sample size, but there's a chance that it could be very good, and it could be great. As we think about second class, good with a chance to be great, this certainly fits that mold. LSU, 9 home runs from the left side at this point. They've got 10 home runs in total, so we're seeing big contributions from the left-handed hitters. And I think there's a chance you could see more of that. Jake Brown, can he keep up, a home run a game? Is that a pace that is sustainable? No, absolutely not. But he is as confident as anybody in the country right now, and perhaps he could continue to piece up some balls and get some out of the yard. like I said, yesterday he hit 2 home runs. It wasn't like the wind was super aiding him. Now, it was a little bit warmer than usual this time of year, but these were no-doubters pretty much off the bat. One straightaway center, one no-doubter to right field, and they're even getting some opposite field, right? You had Dardar go oppo taco. I guess it was Mason Braun actually, as well. So 9 home runs from Braun, York, Dardar, and Brown. Go with a chance to be great. Power from the left side for LSU. We didn't really expect that at this point. 20 home run individual, it seemed unlikely for LSU, but it maybe it's possible for 1, maybe 2 guys this year, and we saw it last year. There wasn't an expectation for power, but by the end of the year, you play a few more games, you end up with triple-digit home runs. Over 100 home runs last year. Could they get to that mark again this year? If they make a deep run, I don't see why not. They're off to a great start here with 10 home runs in the first 4 games. Also second class. This is a story, this could actually be first class, really, and not a whole lot of individuals might be following this. Those of you who follow the show know I'm quite a golf, avid golf fan. We give out the golf picks, consensus golf picks on Wednesdays. And a story that I did not expect to be following this past weekend with the Pebble Beach Pro-Am. You know, it's a good tournament. We're watching the PGA Tour. Live Golf also had an event in Adelaide. It's their biggest event for the Live Tour. They get a lot of buy-in from Australia. They've struggled to get big events. The Australian Open is a historic event, but they just don't have a great field there. There's some tax restrictions there, and, of course, travel. You have all these players who primarily play in the States having to go all the way to Australia in the fall. It's just not ideal for them. You know, this is their summer months, and it doesn't match up with the average professional golfer's schedule. But Live Adelaide, it's gotten huge support by the Australian people. They had over 100,000, 115,000 over 4 days. Live did move to 72 holes this year, so you get a little boost in attendance from the extra day. But this is their biggest event. It's almost their Waste Management Phoenix Open in that they crowd around some holes. They've got some par threes where it's a bit of a party. Of course, Live is always blaring their music and whatnot, and it's a little excessive. I don't really watch Live, but I watched more Live this weekend than I ever have, really, in a tournament. You had a setup on Sunday with John Rahm and Bryson DeChambeau, each tied for the lead, 5 shots ahead of one Anthony Kim, a 40-year-old who took time away from golf for 12 years. And Anthony Kim, for those of you who don't know, had a bit of a cult following. He won, I believe it was 3 times on the PGA Tour. Yes, 3 times. And you would think, 3-time tour winner, how is a guy that popular? He made the Ryder Cup in 2008, had a winning record, and had quite a swagger about him. You know, wore the white belt, big blinged up, personalized belt buckle. You couldn't miss it. Fist bumps galore, and just had an aura about him. I guess that really wasn't a word back in the late 2000s, but he had quite a fan base, and there was a kind of a cult following when he went away from the game. 2011, he got hurt. Supposedly had an insurance policy on his injury and couldn't play, and you wouldn't even see him. He was totally away from the spotlight. There would be random sightings here or there, perhaps, of Anthony Kim, and people will get excited. Maybe he could come back. Maybe we'll see him play golf again one day. But he was kind of a lost cause, a mystique. It was just what would have happened if Anthony Kim had stayed healthy. Well, while he was away from the game, he battled some real personal demons. Had some addiction problems, some mental health issues, and he has spoken about those since he returned to Live. And when Liv brought him back, there was some real reasons to be skeptical of his return. He hadn't played in so long. Sure, I mean, he's now 40 years old. Is he going to come back in the same position that he was when he left the game? No, of course not. He's got to get his wits about him, shake the rust off, and Live, because it's a closed roster, they can afford to sign an Anthony Kim and just hope for the best. Well, it failed. Live tried to bring him in 2024. He didn't finish inside the top 30 a single time that season. He was shooting 80s in a given week. His first event, he had a couple shanks. It was a disaster. But, hey, Liv tried something, whatever. He'll go away. He wasn't on a team. It wasn't a big factor. it was a failure. Came back again in 2025, same results. Didn't finish inside the top 30. And again, it's a 54-man field. I think they've expanded to 57 now, but this is not – he couldn't get in the top half of any of these golf fields. Turns out he got relegated from LIV, finally. All right, it's not a closed market completely. We can't just worship and glorify someone because they were good in 2010 and weren't showing any results. So he gets relegated from LIV, plays in a couple of these Asian Tour events, trying to get back on the LIV Tour. There is a way to promote yourself back in. He finished 5th in the Saudi International. That's not a LIV event, but nevertheless showed some signs. In a DP World Asian Tour event, actually finished 5th. So maybe he just found something on 1 week. That can happen. But then qualified in the top 3 of the LIV Promotions event, which got him back onto the LIV Tour when it seemed like the story was over. The book was closed. The comeback was over. It was a disaster and whatnot. So he gets back on LIV. He now gets to replace Patrick Reed, who left LIV. He is playing on the DP World Tour. He's got a couple wins already on the European side of things, and replaces him on Dustin Johnson's 4 Aces GC. Now, I'm not a big 4 Aces GC guy. I don't follow LIV much at all. I think the team format is a bit of a joke. But nevertheless, he's playing with Dustin Johnson. He's got a team. His first event in 2026 on LIV Tour, he finished 22nd. Hit some good iron shots, showed some promise. His best finish on the LIV Tour. But nevertheless, it was never expected what he would do this past weekend in LIV Adelaide. Again, 5 shots back entering the final round of Jon Rahm and Bryson DeChambeau. Those guys close that deal all the time. And they struggled a little bit, and that opened the door for somebody to come from behind. A Tyrrell Hatton, just anybody, but not Anthony Kim. Not a guy who's 40 years old, who doesn't hit the ball that far, who has no track record here on LIV of sustained success, any success for that matter. He just got back on the LIV Tour to begin with. Probably shouldn't be there, but hey, he earned his way back on. But what do you know? He ends up winning the tournament. Shoots 9 under in the final round. Came into the final round with a 0.3% chance of winning because he's 5 back of 2 top 10 players in the world. He made a stretch of 4 birdies in the row on the back 9 where all the putts were outside of 10 feet, and every single one was right in the middle, followed by a fist pump from Anthony Kim. The crowds, as I mentioned, LIV Adelaide, they support him. It was electric. They were supporting their hometown Australian team, but they were also supporting a comeback story. And this is one of the better stories in golf, certainly the best story of LIV's tenure. You know, LIV's been a flop for the most part. They're losing Brooks Koepka. They're losing Patrick Reed. They put all this money in, and it hasn't worked out. You know, they got some big players to join, and Jon Rahm is there, but he's wilting away. I mean, nobody's really focusing on him. He seems to kind of struggle on Sundays. It's just doesn't seem like a format that's suitable for the best players in the world. It doesn't challenge them in the same way. Cameron Smith has completely gone off the radar since joining there. But a story like this, a triumph for a guy who's basically just playing for his daughter, his family, a comeback story. You can see it. It's weathered on his face. He does not look the same as he once did. He's not the same young Anthony Kim that everyone looked up to. But bringing back the fist bumps, the glory of that, it was a great story. So it's second class because, you know, hopefully he keeps his life together, expands on that, and maybe makes this into something a little bit bigger than just a one-off tournament. But nevertheless, a great story in LIV, clearly the biggest moment in LIV's tenure. I'm not saying it means much for them going forward, but a story of redemption for Anthony Kim, and I thought that was a really cool moment. I was watching it on Fox. It was up 10 o'clock to midnight on Saturday night. I didn't expect to be watching it, but what do you know? It was a great story to come out of LIV Adelaide. Anthony Kim, second class. Finally, no class, before we wrap things up here. A couple entries here. Just some small notes. I don't know a whole lot about this situation, but I've been following the Olympics, as many of you have. Just turning it on in the background. We've got ice skating, a short program on the women's. I know nothing about judging this, so I can't tell you who's going to win or if this woman's doing a great job. I have no idea. But nevertheless, curling is one of my more favorite sports to watch. I know it's a bit polarizing. Some people consider it boring. Maybe you can fall asleep to it for all I know. But the men's and women's Canadian curling teams, you would think Canadian curling, they'd be pretty good. Yeah, they've got quite a good history. Of course, they've got plenty of ice. They play curling more than pretty much anybody. So, yeah, they've got a good track record in curling. But they've got a cheating allegation. this year. How could you be cheating in curling? What's the big deal? Well, there's this thing called a hog line, which I'll leave it at that. A hog line is the moment in which you have to release the stone. You spin it. Maybe you just drive it real hard. Maybe you just give it a little touch and you just try to get it going, and then your sweepers take care of it from there, trying to get inside the middle of the circles and whatnot. The most in the round wins. You try to get 2 or 3, steal a round, whatnot. They've got a hammer, a power play, whatever it is. But the Canadian curlers, first it was the men's team that were accused of double touching. They're touching the stone once again, either before the hog line or right as it goes past the hog line. Illegal, cheating. They were called out by Team Sweden. And one of the curlers, Mark Kennedy, fought back. Expletive-filled outburst at Sweden. How dare you come after him? Accused them later on of having tactics in which they had someone in the crowd who wasn't supposed to have a camera there to film them and accuse them of cheating. Well, it turns out they were double hitting it, and now they're being watched very closely. And then the women's team also did the same thing. The women's team touching it past the hog line. I'll leave that there again. Men's and women's Canadian teams, Canada, I work with some Canadians with my work at Bet Rivers. They're great people. They're nice people. They're known for saying sorry all the time. But we're cheating in the one event that you should be great at. You shouldn't need to cheat in this. And to be cheating in the Olympics in a sport that apparently has a lot of etiquette involved, there's a lot of, you call stuff on your own. It's a little bit like golf. There's an honor system here, and the Canadian teams may be bending the rules. So they're being questioned over their tactics, watched very closely. So no class to the Canadian men's and women's curling teams. And also, one more before we go. We kind of touched on this at the end of hour number 1 yesterday. But Kansas State decided to fire Jerome Tang. Perfectly fine. Totally reasonable. He had been struggling. The fan base had turned on him. Totally understandable to get rid of Jerome Tang. But they're doing it with cause. They are claiming that he has affected the program negatively by his comments in press conferences where he was very critical of the team. And apparently you just can't do that anymore. You can't be hard on your players for the things that, and I get it. The game has changed. And there are certain things of old that probably shouldn't be a thing anymore. That doesn't mean that criticizing your players' lack of effort, rightfully or wrongfully, maybe some of that was on him, maybe he was blaming the players, putting them under the bus, and he should have been taking more of the blame for that. But he brought you to an Elite Eight his first year. He brought you some success. You fired him because he wasn't producing results. You didn't fire him because he was embarrassing the university in press conferences. That's a joke, okay? And this trend that we have now of programs trying to fire their coaches for cause over things that are clearly, they're firing them for results on the court. So don't give them the big buyout when you sign the contract if you're not going to want to pay the buyout at the end of the day. So Kansas State, no class to me. I don't care how you look at it. You could say he embarrassed the university or whatnot. They might be trying to get some leverage into a settlement or whatnot. But Jerome Tang, what do you know? Tom Mars is on his legal team. He's bringing in Tom Mars, who just got Trinidad Chambliss another year at Ole Miss. I think he'd do pretty well. Give him the full buyout. I'm sorry. You signed him. You didn't have to sign the buyout. You didn't have to sign the contract in this way. You did it anyway. So pay him the contract. This is not for cause. Kansas State and the Canadian men's and women's curling team. No class this week. And, of course, first, second, no class brought to you, as always, by Supreme Rice. Grown, milled, and processed in Crowley, Louisiana. You're supporting hometown farmers. Louisiana farmers, of course, that's the way to go. But also, the Lenten season starts tomorrow. Maybe you've got seafood cooked up, ready to go. Maybe a seafood gumbo. How about a crawfish etouffee? Use locally grown Supreme Rice, and it's great, too. They've got so many options, and they're all at your local food stores, your grocery stores, the long grain, the medium grain, the low glycemic rice, if that's an issue for you, parboiled rice, and my personal favorite, the jasmine rice, that sweet popcorn-like flavor. You can do it all. Supreme Rice, yeah, you're keeping it in Louisiana, but also you're getting a great quality product. The rice fields, the crawfish fields are right around crawfish season right around the corner, but might be a little cold. Hey, we've got one more cold snap coming up. Lows and 30s. Make that seafood gumbo. Do it with jasmine rice or long grain, whatever rice you like, at Supreme Rice. Check them out, supremerice.com. We'll come back right after this, talking LSU men's basketball tonight at Texas. It's Live at Lunch, live from Doe's Eat Place on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
Live at Lunch with Ott and Hanny from Doe's Eat Place on Government Street on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
Back here at Doe's Eat Place on Government Street. Come by and see us. We are open on this Fat Tuesday for lunch and for dinner. So whether you're coming by for steaks and tamales coming up tonight or here for lunch, we've got a good crowd joining us here. And you've got the special lunch menu. Really, really special stuff. The Nashville hot chicken sandwich, the burgers, the hamburger steak, the salads are fantastic, the blackened chicken, whatever you get with the hand-cut fries here. Tremendous, tremendous stuff here at Doe's Eat Place. So come by and see us here on this Fat Tuesday. We are open. LSU, the men's basketball team, traveling to the Moody Center in Austin, Texas, to take on a surging Texas Longhorns team. I know the men's team doesn't garner a ton of interest at this point, but they are playing games, and we'll see how things shake out. I will say, I was watching the Sports Center with Scott Van Pelt late last night, and Joe Lunardi still has LSU as considered on his bubble watch, which I find a little interesting. They wouldn't be totally off that, considering their 2-10 SEC record. But nevertheless, I don't know. I mean, I guess if they ran the table, there would be a chance for them to make the tournament. It seems unlikely at this point with no DJ Thomas the rest of the season. But for what it's worth, you've got to give LSU a little bit of credit. They haven't totally quit on their effort, especially on the road. They've been a much better road team in conference play this year, 5-1 against the spread in road SEC games. Now they're catching 11.5 tonight. But this is a Texas team that is playing a lot better. They have now played themselves off of the bubble. They're a 9 seed, according to Joe Lunardi's projections this morning. 4 straight wins at Oklahoma by 10. South Carolina, which you got to take care of them at home, as well as Ole Miss. So they've got some easier opponents. At Missouri is not the hardest place to play at this point with that team, but they have a winning record in conference play, and they beat them by nearly 20 points. So that was a good win for them. They're trending in the right direction. And so, maybe some of what Sean Miller is ingraining in these Longhorns players is working. They've got some talent on this team. Dalen Swain, their guard, he's their leading scorer, 18 points. Was talking with Paul Stone after the show today that we recorded Sports Bettor's Paradise. You can find it on the College Sports Rush YouTube channel or wherever you get your podcasts. As always, Jimmy and Paul Stone giving their best plays for the midweek. That's out right now. But was talking to Paul Stone about this game, a Texas alum, and he was impressed with Sean Miller. I don't know that he was the biggest fan of the hire to begin with, but says that they're really taking a lot of what he's teaching at this point, and they look like a lot better team. They're progressing as the season goes on. I'm not sure that LSU looks better than when they started the season, certainly when they were 12-1 in non-conference play. But they've got some players, and they're also not bad on the boards, especially offensive rebounding, and that could really be a problem for this LSU team that has struggled a little bit on the glass defensively. 13th, Texas is in the country out of 365 teams at offensive rebounding percentage. So they do a good job of that. And they also get to the line, which LSU, that's probably the strength of their offense, the strength of their team, really, at this point, because their defense is not to ride home about by any means. But they do get to the line a lot, and I think we're going to see a lot of free throws in this game. Both teams good at attacking the rim and garnering some contact. So we might see some foul trouble be a factor in this game. We are going to see Max McKinnon back for LSU. He was off the injury report for LSU, so that's a good sign for them offensively. We saw a little bit more of a defensive game against Tennessee, and granted, LSU did a good job of not turning the ball over. I didn't expect numbers like that to not turn the ball over, considering no Thomas, considering you had a Reese and Rashad King running the point and whatnot. You would think there would be more turnovers there. They did a good job of protecting the ball, but it was a low-scoring game. Tennessee kind of known for that, although they're not quite as good defensively this year, but I expect a lot more offense in this game, considering the way these two teams match up. Texas, one of the more efficient offensive teams in the country. They do a good job of just generating good looks, and they've got good players who can score the basketball, and that's going to be a problem for LSU. McKinnon, his return, certainly spaces the floor a lot more. He's their only real perimeter shooter, of course, and when he was off the floor, it's a pretty easy scout for a defense. Just pack the paint, don't allow him to crash the glass, and, just let them take their shots. Well, McKinnon, at least you've got to guard him, at the perimeter, and that expands things just a little bit for them. But also McKinnon's probably a minus defender, so I think you're going to see a little bit more offensive prowess among both teams in this game. Total 150.5. I'd look at that, but LSU has a chance to keep this one close. I would be stunned, like many of you would, if they were to win this game. But they haven't totally quit at this point. You have to give it to them at this point. They're demoralized. Obviously, this has not been the season they hoped for. Injuries have been a factor, but nevertheless, Texas a 9 seed at this point. They can't afford a loss like this. They'd be right back on the bubble. They did lose a home game in overtime to Mississippi State. That's a bad loss for them. So it is possible, but very unlikely for the men's basketball team. When we come back, we'll get some college basketball picks from veteran handicapper Ace Seminaro. He'll call into the show. Ace Seminaro when we come back here live at lunch from Doe's Eat Place on this Fat Tuesday on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
With Ott and Hanny from Doe's Eat Place on Government Street on 104.5 ESPN, Baton Rouge.
Max Gotro filling in for Jimmy and Charlie today on this Fat Tuesday here from Doe's Eat Place. Of course, it's Tuesdays, which means we always get to chat with our good friend and veteran handicapper Ace Seminara, talking college basketball today. Got a few plays on a really exciting card on Tuesday. Ace, I don't know if you ever experienced Mardi Gras, but whether you have or not, happy Fat Tuesday to you.
Happy Fat Tuesday to you as well, Max. I have not. That's definitely something I got to cross off the bucket list. I'm sure Jimmy's having the time of his life out there today. Can't hardly blame him.
You would think so, but he's actually avoiding the parades at all costs. He's the old guy, yelling at the lawn, I guess, per se. But nevertheless, a well-deserved day off for him. Let's get to your picks. We've got a great slate. I don't know if they're celebrating Mardi Gras or not, but, it's a Tuesday. It's a normal Tuesday card, and we've got 10 games featuring ranked opponents, including one top 10 matchup between Michigan and Purdue. You've got a play on this one. Curious to hear what you have to say about it.
I do have a play on that one. And just to get back last night to what a tremendous matchup last night, Iowa State and Houston, just kicking off the college basketball season. It seems like everybody always needs that 1 week off after the Super Bowl to get themselves kind of out of the rut of playing football all the time, but college basketball is here. Make no mistakes about it. That was literally like a Final Four matchup last night. Lucky enough to have had Houston plus the 3.5 and get that victory by the hook, but what a great game tonight. Number 1 versus number 7. First time Michigan has been number 1 in the poll since 2013. Obviously a tremendous record, 24-1, that one loss against Wisconsin. And they are peaking at the right time right now, having won their last 10 straight. They're as deep and big and physical as any team I've seen, Max, in the last probably 20 years, I'd say, honestly. I can't give them enough props right here. Top 5 in the country. Only team in the country, top 5 in the country in offense and defensive efficiency. They've had 8 different scorers lead them in scoring at one point during the season. The only thing you might say tonight, obviously, no walkover here going into Purdue. Certainly a tremendous team, and they've won 4 straight after their 3-game losing streak at the end of January. They certainly righted the ship. Braden Smith playing fantastic, 12 assists last Saturday as they blew out Iowa on the road. Is Michigan perhaps looking past Purdue, knowing that they're playing Duke in D.C. on Saturday? Another tremendous out-of-conference late-season matchup. A game that you'd think, is certainly going to be, again, another potential Final Four, maybe even championship game matchup. So I don't think Michigan's looking past them. Purdue's a heck of a team, but I like Michigan in this matchup. Last night, that line 2.5. I'm seeing that money line drop now to where it's very reasonable at 145, 150 to get on Michigan on the money line and just take Michigan on the money line to win the game. That's our first free play.
Excited a couple big tests, like you mentioned, for Michigan. We'll see how it tests out, especially strength on strength. That Purdue offense, second most efficient, according to KenPom. Michigan, number 1 defensively. How about the team that beat Michigan? Their lone loss of the season, Wisconsin, going on the road to Columbus to take on Ohio State. Wisconsin, a slight road favorite, 1.5 on the road in Big Ten play.
Yep, another great Big Ten matchup. They just sneak into the top 25 there at number 24. Team that is just peaking at the right time. Coach Guard's got them absolutely humming right now. Huge win. We had them on Friday night My personal clients know I released that game on Friday night. They blew out Michigan State. Right now, Blackwell and Boyd, just you can't get a better guard scoring combo right now, I think, in the country. You know, they beat Ohio State back on January 31st, 92-82. Blackwell and Boyd combined for 43. And Ohio State's been a little bit of a back-and-forth team. They can't seem to put together a winning streak. They're certainly on the bubble right now, but 0-6 versus top 25 teams. Not much of a bench. Mobley was out for the last couple of games. That's a 15-point scorer, the second leading scorer. You know, they seem to lose a lot of close games. We were lucky enough to actually have Ohio State as well on Saturday night, getting 4.5, and again, covered by the hook in that neutral site game in Nashville. They blew an 11-point lead against Virginia. They're going in the wrong direction. I understand, again, this is a tough place to play on the road, any tough place to play in the Big Ten. But give me Wisconsin on the money line, lay that 122 in a game where, you know, you got more scoring options and back right now guards that are just humming the way they are. Put the ball in Blackwell or Boyd's hands late in the shot clock. I have a lot more confidence in Wisconsin to get that game under the wire than I do Ohio State right now, who seems to be, again, just struggling, especially against good teams.
Joe Lunardi's currently got Ohio State in the first 4 out. You mentioned they've struggled against their big competition. Would be a big spot for them, but certainly Wisconsin, one of the hotter teams in the country. Finally, we go to the SEC here for another one of your plays, Ace. Georgia on the road to Kentucky. Man, Georgia's sliding right now. They've lost 5 of their last 6. They are firmly on the bubble watch now. Kentucky trending in the right direction. They've covered the last 4 games. Seems like Mark Pope's got something trending in the right direction there for Lexington and Kentucky. So Georgia on the road to Kentucky, now catching 7.5. Is that worth a play, a buy low spot here for the Bulldogs?
It certainly appears so. And before I forget, Max, just want to remind people they can reach me through my text service. Just text the words free picks to 631-805-6165. You'll receive my top-rated daily free picks. That's all it is, no pressure at all. 631-805-6165. You text that number, text the word free picks, and you'll receive my highest-rated daily free picks every single day. A way for you to feel a part of my service and exactly how I can help you throughout the rest of the basketball season. Yeah, let's get back to that game. You know, Kentucky right now receiving a few votes. They certainly have picked it up as late, even though they lost by 9 at Florida Saturday. Not an embarrassing loss by any stretch. Florida right now is playing as hot as any team in the country. And Georgia, as you mentioned, yes, lost 5 out of their last 6. They had their leading scorer out the last 2 games. Word is it that Wilkerson is coming back tonight, and that's the guy that scores 17 points a game. Just extends their bench a little further. They are a deep team. There's no doubt about that with Georgia. They go as deep as 10 guys on their bench. So I feel like a desperate team like that, getting what now was 7.5, jumped up to 9.5, kind of settled back at about 8.5 points, is what I see in a lot of places. Give me the Bulldogs. It appears since Wilkerson's been out, Blue Kane, their second leading scorer, has picked up the slack. 20 points his last game, 17 points the game before that. Certainly expect Georgia, a desperate team at this point, to pull out all those stops and play it with desperation, knowing that they're now probably on the wrong side of the bubble and certainly need this game to get back on the right side of the bubble.
All right, so taking Georgia and the points tonight in Kentucky. Ace, we've got a month to go until March Madness begins. A month today till the first 4 get started in Dayton. Any teams that you're looking at right now? I know you mentioned that great game last night between Houston and Iowa State, but maybe some outlier teams that you're wanting to follow that maybe could make a run. I don't know if you play any future markets, if you look for Final Four odds or anything like that before the field is set, but just some certain teams you're monitoring right now as we get down the closing stretch here of conference play.
Great question, Max. I absolutely love the future wagering. I did mention to folks, I think it could have been in my second show on with Jimmy about a month and change ago, about Iowa State at the time at plus 900. They're right now at plus 1,400, which I'm still shocked at that. But give me Houston as well. Give me Houston, a team that did lose last night, but I love their three-guard rotation. I love the defense that they play. And obviously, you know Coach Sampson is not going to put up for anybody that doesn't play defense. And late in the game now, he's even willing to trust Kingston Fleming's a freshman, which is totally unheard of for him, but he knows how talented the guy is. He can absolutely take over games in neutral sites where they might be placed in the South, and then being able to play in Houston to get to the Final Four. Yeah, give me the Houston Cougars. They've dropped now to plus 750. I got in on them a week ago at plus 1,100. So those are the two teams that I've played so far, Iowa State and Houston, and those are the two teams I think you get value. Obviously, Michigan, the favorite, everybody's favorite. They go so deep, it looks like they can't be beaten. But I'm never one to bet the odds-on favorite, especially when it comes to future wagering. There's more value a little bit down the road, and I think you get some value with those. And again, don't forget to have you guys text the words free picks to 631-805-6165, free of charge. I'll get you on board my text service. I'll be more than happy to text you my free pick every single day, show you what it feels like to get some professional advice from a professional sports bettor who's been doing this over 40 years in the business. Looking forward to a great run right to Selection Sunday, which is less than 4 weeks away, and then through the tournament right till Championship Day.
Appreciate it as always, Ace. Of course, you can text them as you heard. Free picks, 631-805-6165. Appreciate it. As always, Ace, happy Mardi Gras, whatever you're doing today. I'm sure you'll hopefully be cashing some tickets tonight in the college basketball.
Absolutely. Have a great day, Max. Great to hear from you.
All right, that's Ace Seminaro. Joins us, as always, here at the bottom of the hour bottom of the second hour here on Tuesdays at Live at Lunch. We're here at Doe's Eat Place. Come by and see us. We are open for lunch, open for dinner here on this Mardi Gras. The lunch menu, I've mentioned it plenty of times, but it's there's no misses. It just, 100. They're batting 100%. They're batting even hotter than Jake Brown somehow. I don't know how they do it, but whatever you're getting, salads. If you're going the healthy route, sure. I've gotten them plenty of times. You could go with the hamburger steak, the hamburgers themselves, the fried seafood, or even the Nashville hot chicken sandwich like I am planning to order right after this. Of course, Doe's Eat Place, known for their steaks, their tamales as well. Come by for dinner. Reservations are available. We are open for Mardi Gras night tonight, so come by and see us. Doe's Eat Place here on Government Street. When we come back, we'll wrap things up, a couple college basketball plays, and just some overall thoughts before we let go of the Mardi Gras day today here on Live at Lunch. 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
Live at Lunch with Ott and Hanny from Doe's Eat Place on Government Street on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
Live at Lunch back here at Doe's Eat Place, wrapping things up here on a Fat Tuesday edition of the show. Jimmy and Charlie will be back tomorrow. We'll be at Roca Pizzeria. As always, Wednesday guest Randy McKay, Scott Rabelais will join in. We'll recap that women's basketball game, I'm sure. Look ahead to what's ahead. They've kind of struggled in these close games, and that's one thing we've talked about here on the show between Jimmy and Charlie. It's debatable about the strength of schedule, especially in the non-conference that Kim Mulkey has scheduled, and look, she deserves all of the benefit of the doubt when it comes to these things. But maybe if they were tested a little bit more, would they be doing a little bit better in these close games? They have 4 losses, and all of them, they were very competitive in all of them. So hopefully they'll learn from those mistakes and be better for it in March play. But perhaps you could be better. I'm sure we'll talk about that with Scott. Wes Reynolds will join us as well, still off his Indiana high from his Hoosiers winning the national title. He'll give us his picks as well for the Genesis Invitational, an elevated event on the PGA Tour. We'll have our consensus picks and all that stuff, and I'm sure Jimmy and Charlie will be very excited to recap LSU at Texas, the men's basketball game tonight. A couple college basketball plays. Again, we mentioned a very good card tonight, but I'm going to start off with one of the plays we heard from Andy Isco, and that's Villanova, minus 3.5. They're on the road at Xavier. Xavier's playing a little bit better as of late. They've got back-to-back wins or covers, I guess. They lost at St. John's. That was a crushing defeat for them in the Garden, but followed it up with an 8-point victory against Marquette. Marquette, not the same team that they once were, but Xavier's playing a little bit over their skis right now. Villanova has covered in all but one of their road games in conference play. They've been an outstanding road team under Kevin Willard. He's done a great job in his first year. Look at what Maryland's done since he left. I know he kind of left them at a bad time, a bad spot, but it has not been very good results in the first year for Buzz Williams. But Willard's got things going there for Villanova, and I think the Wildcats keep it going. They've covered now 6 of their last 7 games. I think they do it on the road here against Xavier, a good spot for them to keep things going here in the Big East play. Also tonight, we mentioned it earlier. I don't have a play on this one because I'm kind of waiting to see what happens with the injury report for North Carolina. Will Wade's NC State Wolfpack looking to bounce back. They've lost 2 games in a row, crushing defeat to Miami, a very tight battle after getting absolutely killed by Louisville on the road. So they've lost 4 in a row now against the number 2 straight up, looking for a bounce-back win against their rival North Carolina Tar Heels. But North Carolina a little bit shorthanded. We mentioned Caleb Wilson, their leading scorer, 20 points per game, 9 rebounds. He is out for a couple of weeks. We will see excuse me, if their center Henry Vassar will be back in action tonight. He missed their weekend spot, and so he's dealing with illness and injury, so hard to tell whether he'll play. We'll find out later tonight. I'm sure that line will adjust accordingly. Louisville's at SMU tonight. LSU's best win was a neutral site venue win against the Mustangs. They're looking to bounce back. They're currently on that bubble line. They're not quite in the bubble, but they're a 10 seed, so they got to be careful here. They're kind of sputtering a little bit as of late. They've lost 3 of their last 5 games. They lost by 1 to Syracuse as well recently, so they're coming off a spot where they could use a win. 4.5 points they're catching at home against Louisville, a very good Louisville team that's won 5 in a row, but I think it's a decent spot for the Mustangs here. So I'm going to watch that one a little bit. And, of course, Miami, Ohio, looking to stay undefeated. They're 2.5-point favorite at UMass. UMass gave them trouble early this year, if I remember correctly, just pulling it up right now. January 26th, Miami, Ohio was at home, and they won by 2. So this could be the spot for the Red Hawks to finally get in trouble. But they're a team everyone's rooting for, I think, because right now if they lose, they would not be in the tournament. That's kind of where they are on the bubble line. So worth watching, and a whole lot of other games. 10 ranked teams in total, 10 ranked matchups tonight in college basketball. Appreciate all the hospitality here from Doe's Eat Place. Open here for Mardi Gras tonight as well as lunch. So come by and see us here at Doe's Eat Place on Government Street. Live at lunch, Jimmy and Charlie will be back from Roca Pizzeria tomorrow. Stay tuned for Hunt Palmer on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.